TED Talk carpet. Hey, how's it going? So I'm going to talk a little about something that is made of open hardware, but is made for a specific statement that goes a little bit beyond the hardware and software that defines it. So this is like the obligatory bio slide that everybody does. I'm just going to roll through this real quick. I'm mostly a JavaScript developer, not necessarily that much into hardware. I'm really interested in things like JavaScript encryption, which has a lot of haters, but I think has come a long way since then. I'm also the co-organizer of something called Art Hack Day, a hackathon for artists whose medium is technology and technology is a medium is art, which is where this project is kind of a nice intersection between the two. This isn't the first time I've trolled data retention. Basically, I did a thing called Haystack, which is host.ac, because I had to take off the K at the end because other domains weren't available. That basically obfuscates your Google search history to add a bunch of fake results and then fake clicks of those search results into the mix. So it just turns your history into a big mess. I also help run crypto parties in New York City, which I'll touch up on in a little bit. So that's something that's going on. Also, I live in New York City. This is the thing that I was talking about. So this is an art project that I did, Begin PGP Mixtape, sort of a play on Begin PGP Messages, which is sort of the first opening line of an encrypted email message with PGP. This is actually really boring hardware. It's an Arduino and a wave shield. I guess it's not boring. It's just that you've all seen it before. So it's really great. I love it. But so it's just basically that with an SD card. 2 plates of acrylic, which is sort of like the standard hackerspace aesthetic of like this Arduino panini of just like sandwiching these two things together. That has a few sort of design decisions that I put into it. In this case, it's a transparent sort of design and kind of open on the sides. The reason being it was sort of a statement on wanting openness and like the devices that we depend on. In this case, also a protest to the exploitation of these more black box devices by companies like Fisher, Hacking Team, et cetera, which basically weaponize software for governments to use to spy on their citizens. So it was just basically me being like, no. So that's basically what that looks like. It's in a box because in this case, I was able to find this weird mailing address the NSA has at the Fort Meade headquarters. And I mailed it to them. So I said, I'm going to create a surveillance sort of mixtape and then have it play on the Arduino Wave Shield, but then encrypt the SD card so that you can't actually listen to it without the header key passphrase. So this is something that I think more people should ask about kind of our efforts, the things that we put our time and energy into. In this case, it's because of what's being built in Utah. It's because of what's being done elsewhere, also in, with Australia's data retention and other places as well, is we live under a lot of surveillance that I tend to disagree with as far as how it works, et cetera. This is my way of basically saying that even though we have these apparatuses, we have encryption and other technologies that can assist in helping us sort of attempt to bring back our privacy. This is a little more complicated than it sounds because crypto software is hard. It's something that was developed in the 90s by a lot of very smart people, but that was made by very smart people for very smart people. Not to say that the rest of us aren't smart in other ways, but in this case, most of us are not sort of crypto smart. I'm not. So in this case, we also have crypto parties, which are sort of like Tupperware parties for cypherpunks, which is basically a way for us to kind of all meet together and then kind of go through the hurdles of getting this stuff working, understanding how it works, and sort of building a community around that as well. This actually happened. This is our first event at the Brooklyn Public Library, which we've partnered with. It's one of those things we keep hearing about libraries kind of stepping into a lot of crossover of the sort of stuff that we've been doing, and this is another avenue that's been happening, which I'm really excited about. Cryptography is powerful in the sense that this is something that the military's had for a long time. The U.S. military specifically, this is the thing that in World War II was basically oh, hey, Navajo is hard, let's use that. To being a lot more advanced and using much more sort of sophisticated mathematical algorithms to obfuscate data and sort of protect it. This was totally something that was exclusive to that domain up until like the early 90s, which of course we know, like Phil Zimmermann, et cetera, released code for us to be able to use it for the rest of the world. That was basically an act of, like, a declaration of sovereignty in some ways, whereas in this case, with teaching crypto, it's more of an act of solidarity. So let's talk about the crypto behind this mixtape. So here's the thing that I haven't actually talked about yet, is like what I used to actually encrypt it. This was in May, and I made it a true crypt volume. Like, it was easier to like be able to set up a hashing algorithm that was different than the standard ones that it came with. So I used Whirlpool because it wasn't influenced by NIST. 10 days after I mailed the mixtape, all this weirdness happens behind the project. So nobody really knows what's going on. Like, the software itself says it's insecure not to use it. In this case, I've looked into some other alternatives, something that I think would be of more use to the open hardware and open software community, which I'd like to share with you now. There's a lot of stuff out there. eCryptFS, EncFS are two very promising systems of sort of file system encryption, so just encrypting files, encrypting volumes, that run quite well actually on things like the Raspberry Pi, the Beagle Mobile App. There's a little bit more support on EncFS on different file systems because it uses something called views, which is basically an abstraction of a file system so that you can theoretically create software that run on Windows OS X. And I think those platforms should be included because not everybody's going to install Linux. So I don't actually have the speakers loud enough to actually connect this to the thing. So this is actually the decrypted version. This is actually, so I work at a museum. We had a staff art show, and we were able to like showcase different things that we worked on. I made two of them. So the red one was red because red, like, kind of the parlance of that was like, this is the ciphertext. This is like the secret sensitive stuff. And clear is just like what's in the clear. This is that one. So this has just an unencrypted SD card with the actual soundtrack. One thing I forgot to mention in the design was that this is a purple LED. Those are hard to source. So at least I had difficulty with them anyway. I don't have friends in Shenzhen. But yeah, I mean, but there was a very specific color choice, mostly because, like, I think in addition to sort of these technological solutions that we try to like use as sort of aids to solving problems where like political solutions don't necessarily pan out, we also need to think about the greater context of the political jurisdictions that we live in. And in this case, purple happened to be like pirate party color out of like the sort of like distinct sort of internet freedom groups out there. I figured that would be kind of a nice hat tip to them for like thinking about it. So that was sort of a little add-on that would have there. But in any case, this is basically the project. And if any of you have questions, I'll be around afterwards for that. Thanks.